Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Boutique Lawyer Show. My name's Jerome Doraisamy. I'm coming to you today from Camaragal Land in Sydney, and I'm very pleased to be joined in studio by Claire Stiles. She is the founder and principal of C Legal. She's a former winner of the Sole Practitioner of the Year category at our Women in Law Awards, and I think this is her third appearance on this show, but it's her first one in person. Claire, lovely to see you in the flesh.
Lovely to be here. I'm excited to be here.
And today we are going to be discussing some things that have been happening with Claire this year, personally and professionally, and what it's taught her about herself and also as a business person, and why she has decided to niche down even further, with the firm that she runs, and how some of the things that have been happening in her life have given her the perspective she needs to lean in and niche down even more. Claire, there's a lot to talk about here in terms of what's been going on at your end. But before we get into it, for those who maybe haven't heard you on this show before, could you give us a brief overview of the work that you and your firm do?
Yes. So we at C Legal & Co. focus on asset protection for business owners and high net worth individuals. So we're getting to be quite creative in a lot of strategy for them, especially coming into this big wealth transfer that we're going to be seeing in the next 10, 20 years that's going to be happening. We're really on the cusp of that asset protection piece.
Yeah. And why is this area, aside from the reasons that you've just outlined, politically, economically, why they're so important, for you on a personal and professional level, why is this a meaningful practice area to be in?
Yeah, I think for me, and I know we'll get into the niching down, but I started the firm with the idea of a little bit of business, a little bit of transaction, a bit of property and the estate planning piece. But always I had this level of enjoyment that came from the estate planning piece that any other area of law didn't give me that. And I think it's just got to do with the family element. But I'm not doing family law. So I get the lovely side of actually planning for what people want when they pass away. And I think for me, I really view life like life is very short and what we're building is important for the next generation. And I think that personal values piece really comes into the estate planning, and that's why I've really niched down and now I just am doing that area.
Yeah, and it certainly helps you live out your own personal values as well if you're getting these constant reminders in the 9 to 5.
Exactly.
And tell us a little bit more about the daily operations of the firm. Like, how big it is, for examul.
So I have had a bit of a pivot happen. So I did 2 months in Europe earlier for their summer. So I was there for June and July. And during that time, I really got to reflect on the business and look at what was working and what wasn't working. And so from the start of the business, I've always contracted out my staff. And so it still just is very lean. I'm the only lawyer, and I did have a conveyancer and 2 paralegals that were contractors that worked mostly full-time hours for me, but it ended up being that their capacity was becoming less and less, and so there was a little bit of growing pains happening. So when I was overseas, I think those growing pains came to light and made me truly reflect and look at the numbers and to see what was really working and what wasn't. And so for me, I thought, okay, well, if I lean even more, lean it out, niche it more, leverage, I'll be able to create more of that flexibility piece that I so desire and love about running my own firm.
Yeah, so tell me a bit more about what that looks like, because I follow you on Instagram, and I was checking out the Europe trip that you had, and I was immensely jealous, in that time, but. It seems like a really interesting thing to realize about the business you're running when, I guess, theoretically, you should be enjoying yourself and, all the Aperol spritzes and whatever else you were consuming.
Yeah, that's right. Well, working while holidaying is tricky. And I think I did learn a lesson in as much as I enjoyed the 2 months, I didn't need 2 months at the end of the day. I had travel fatigue by the end of it.
Sure.
And I think that was partly because I was working as well as holidaying. Yeah. And the work wasn't in growth stage when, when you're planning these kinds of trips, if you are planning them as a, boutique law firm owner, I think the thing to really focus in on is sustaining what you've got and sustaining for that period of time, knowing as soon as you hit the ground again, that's when you can start growing. But if you have the desire to have that balance where you do want to work remotely and you do want to do a bit of travel, reflect on what areas of law gives you that flexibility, and also how your calendar will look. When is the busy times here? When are our quiet times? I know coming up to Christmas, we're busy, and then January, most law firms have shut down. So looking at your calendar in advance when you're planning trips as well, I think helps. For me, it was very much the balance of a little bit of work, a little bit of play, ended up being quite tired from the trip.
One thing that interests me about this particular aspect of our conversation is that, when you think about, taking a bit of time to go to Europe and, get away from the business of being a lawyer, one would assume that you are completely stepping back and, you're not going to be checking your emails as much as you possibly can. And that kind of approach would help you get perspective on, what's important and how much you want to be working, whether you're enjoying your work, full stop. But by doing this working holiday, as you've described, it sounds as though you've still been able to get that perspective that you needed on the business and what it needs to look like.
And I think early on my trip, I was still working quite a lot. But then as the trip continued, I think what happened was it allowed me to step back a little bit and get that perspective as well. But yeah, still checking emails every day. But I would say just being in a different environment, and not the everyday, the monotony sometimes of your everyday routine really helps give you that perspective. So for me, I really did reflect. I thought to myself, what am I really enjoying about the firm and the clients, and what areas are taking too much energy and really not producing as much money or the result that I would want. And so when I really took a stand backwards and looked at it, I thought, well, the area that I love working in is estate planning. And so if I just hone in on that and get rid of everything else, I'm quietening down the noise and I'm able to produce better for the clients that I've got in that space.
So what does the firm structure look like now? I mean, you've said, that there were, resource, or time changes that happened with the team that you did have. Do we have a completely new look kind of team?
Almost. So what it looks like, again, I'm the sole lawyer. I've kept one paralegal on who does all the estate administration work. And then I've brought in a new virtual assistant, and that virtual assistant is here in Sydney, so she can actually come to meetings if I need her to. And she's doing all of the back end, front, all of that kind of work for the estate planning clients. So I've gotten rid of 2 staff, and now I've only got 2. Okay. So I went from 3 to 2, but switch the people up.
And just as a side note, I think one thing that boutique firm owners really struggle with, and I'm sure you've had many conversations along these lines, is the idea that if they step away from the business for a short holiday, the whole thing's going to fall apart. But of course, holidays are really important.
Yes.
Everyone needs time to switch off.
Yeah.
So do you feel like doing it the way you did, you take 2 months to be in Europe, but you are checking emails every day, just making sure that the sky isn't falling. And you said, you were still able to get the perspective you needed by virtue of being in a different physical location. Is that the kind of happy medium for firm owners who just worry that they're just not able to step away?
Yeah, I think it's a really great place to start for people that are worried. As a boutique law firm owner, it all comes back to you at the end of the day. So there is always that fear of, the work, the cash flow, everything that, you do have to manage. But I think if travel and a holiday is something that you need or want or desire, which I think most of us do, and most of us need a holiday, the working holiday will provide people with that opportunity. But I would say you don't get the relaxation of a holiday that we all need as well. And I think if you can manage 2 weeks somewhere where you can really not be online, that's a really good reset. But when you're doing a working holiday for longer, you're still able to have time away, see new places, but keep on the pulse of things going on. So when you get back, it doesn't all crumble.
So I guess it's a bit of push and pull, or you've got to sacrifice something at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
We're chatting with Claire Stiles, and we'll be back with more right after this. Claire, another thing from the past year with you that that I wanted to touch on was some of the health concerns that you've had to go through, which to your great credit, I think you've been very transparent about on social media, and sharing the journey with your followers on LinkedIn and Instagram and other platforms, to the extent that you're willing to talk about it in this forum. Would you mind telling us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, they would have seen the journey. I like to be open in my journey. I think it helps people who are also going through difficult times. So, yeah, it all started about July last year, where my plan was to go to Bali for, 3 months and work remotely from Bali. 2 weeks in, and I get a really bad parasite. Extremely sick. I fly home, and that parasite and the healing journey of that parasite took 9 months. So that was the start of what I would call, I had a second wave of sickness, which was what really hit me in March this year. But the first lot of sickness still was something that I had to work and manage. And that parasite was really tricky when it came to being sick a lot. And so I think for me, that was when I really understood the value of having my own firm and my own hours and my own structure, because I was able to still monitor my sickness and get better while still running the firm. But I had to accept the fact that I wasn't in growth stage. I was in maintain stage. It was, okay, if I take a year to get better, I can still maintain the firm, I can still service my clients, but I probably can't do all the networking that I once did. Yeah. So that really took a back step for me, and it was a hard pill to swallow because I network a lot, and that's how my business runs. So I really had to look at some key referrers, look at some previous clients, look at some people in my network, and pound that pavement in a different way to what I had done before, which was a lot of energy output. Yeah. So then I get better in January-ish, at January time, and I started the 75 Hard Challenge. So I'm not sure if you've heard about this.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so this is usually in the fitness space. It's been created by this guy, I forget his name, but it's 75-day challenge, and it is 5 particular things you have to do every day. So it's a workout every day, 10,000 steps every day, drink, I think, 5 liters of water a day, meditate every day, and journal 10 pages a day. So you get no rest for 75 days. So it is a hardcore thing to try. And at that point, I was like, yep, I'm feeling really good. I'm going to go all in. I got to day 43. And at this point, my body was fatigued. I was fatigued, and I got a really bad cold. I couldn't shake this cold for about a month. And I was also pushing myself still, going to saunas, getting back into the networking, being like, okay, no, I'm better. And then I got hit with severe glandular fever and tonsillitis at the same time. So what that meant was I couldn't eat, drink, or swallow. So I ended up in hospital because I was too dehydrated. I couldn't keep anything down. I was in hospital for about 10 days. And in that period of time was really when I think it all came to light, like what is important, why are we doing what we're doing? And it really took a whole shutdown moment to reassess what I truly valued. And I talk a lot about what I value, and a lot about work-life balance, and a lot about creating a firm that works for you. But this sickness was the thing that really put another layer to that. None of us are immune to sickness or situations in our life that can take a toll on our professional life. And I think having support and having a community to help you through that is really important. And for me, it came down to my family, and it really does show you who your true friends are and where you're putting your energy. And I think that was really key for me in business. I was putting so much energy out, but there's strategy that needs to be put in place to make sure you're getting the best out of the time output. And so that was another reflection piece for me, was that, okay, well, really at the end of the day for me, my mum and sister flew down to look after me and thank God that they did. Yeah. But through that process, personally, I lost a lot of friends. My social network changed. And that dynamic alone is a stripping back of what you once knew. Yeah. And it allows newness to come through. Sure. So I think through that, I've had to learn to navigate fatigue, because glandular fever stays in your body. So it's like a chronic fatigue. If your immune system gets too low, you're really, really quick to be sick. And so that's something that I have to monitor now. But in saying that, I'm probably doing, more things that I ever thought I would do before, which is exciting because I'm able to really monitor my calendar and make a calendar that works for me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you very much for being willing to share all of that. It is really generous of you, and I'm very sorry that you have had those struggles in the past year. I'm sure, I've no doubt there's been some really tough moments in that. So it's great that you're able to talk about it so fluidly now. Just sort of reflecting on that and what we were saying a bit earlier about the working holidays, I think one thing that a lot of professionals find, not just lawyers but across the board, is that especially if you're in a senior position or management position, that it's very hard to take a day off if you're feeling sick, and to just completely ignore your emails for a 24-hour period if you just need to lie on the couch and rest all day. Certainly I find that to be a challenge, and that's to my detriment. So how have these experiences, with that parasite, with the glandular fever, what have they taught you about the need to just step back and actually allow your body to get better, particularly given that you have done the kind of working holiday thing a lot?
So I think there's a layer of high achievers have certain personality traits, and those are usually what we produce equals our value. So I had to really go inward and look at that and look at myself and look at, okay, well, yes, producing is really important, but at this point in time, I can't produce at the level that I was. And that actually doesn't mean that my firm suffered, because it didn't actually suffer financially. I did the same numbers. And I was like, okay, wow, didn't think that was going to happen. But I had things in place to help manage what I was going through. And that made me realize, okay, so my value has been in the past as a high achiever, what I produce equals my value. And I think at this point it's like, yep, I'm producing for the clients for a particular purpose, but that doesn't actually create a value system anymore. What things truly drive me and help me achieve the next layer of success is actually, I need rest. If I take half a day to myself, the next day I'm going to be producing at a much better and more efficient rate. So I think all of us fall into this trap about being busy, about busy equals success, about a full calendar. You talk to every social circle that I'm part of, and the first thing that comes out of everyone's mouth is, oh, how are you? Oh, I'm so busy. So I think there's a real lesson in that, like let's strip that back and let's actually be like, look at our calendar, schedule in those times, and especially if you aren't well, there's this layer of guilt you've got to get over, like you've got to be at the end of the day. Health is number one and everything else comes from that place. You can't be a good, daughter, wife, husband, father, mother, any of those things that, are so important, a great business owner without looking after yourself. So I think for anybody that's kind of struggling with that, take a look in the mirror and say to yourself, is this going to help me for tomorrow? Am I going to have a better tomorrow if I take myself out of the day and give myself that rest or whatever self-care ritual you need to reset? Because we all need it. And I think the emails and the way society is with such, we're all over-consuming everything, and that's making our nervous system be on a level that it shouldn't be. Yeah. So I think none of that helps us, especially high achievers. So, yeah.
You mentioned a little bit earlier that, by virtue of having gotten sick, that you had to forego the growth aspect of the business for a little while and just try to keep the train on the tracks for a period. But given what you were just saying there about the perspective and, being able to then recharge the batteries, do you feel like, ironically, maybe you're better placed to get back into the growth stuff now than you might have been had none of this happened?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been so crazy and polarizing coming back from that trip, how much clarity I gained. And moving forward, where I'm heading for the firm and the other projects that I've got on, it's a super exciting space. And absolutely, I wouldn't be in this position now if it hadn't been for the trip or if it hadn't been that I got sick. But I think the working holiday is actually if you can do it, if you've got the ability to do it, I highly recommend going for it because you've got nothing to lose. Look at it as a maintaining and as a growth in other areas so that when you come back, you're even better than you could have imagined.
Well, Claire, you mentioned other projects in that response, which offers us a nice segue into another topic we're going to get into, which we'll do on the other side of this. So, Claire, I understand you have a new side hustle on top of the firm that you're currently running. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, got the firm happening, and I've been working on this side hustle for about almost 18 months now, and I am launching a brand next month, and it is a luxury leather bag brand for his and hers. So it is not just for women. And I've been creating this with some beautiful manufacturers over in Spain. So that was part of my trip to Europe. I got to go visit the manufacturers and finalize the samples. So starting with 2 products, a beautiful tote bag for corporate women and a lovely duffel for guys that can go from the boardroom and you can grab your boarding pass and jump on a plane. So the brand is called House of Styles and it is going to be, like I said, launching next month. I'm doing an exclusive event at the Pillars next month for a great guest list, which I'm planning at the moment. And that creative project and outlet, I feel that I can put time and energy in because I've got such a good structure for everything else.
And what inspires a lawyer to start a fashion brand like this?
Everyone looks at me and is like, that's completely opposite. I have always loved fashion. I love beautiful things. I want to surround myself with beautiful things all the time. It makes me feel good. There's a layer of aspiration to that, this life of luxury that I'm a part of and I want to be more a part of. And I think for me, I needed a creative outlet and the stars aligned to create something like this. I always say I sit in a room of lawyers and I feel a little bit out of place. I feel like I sit in a room of entrepreneurs and I feel like that's where I'm meant to be. And so then I have that mindset for the law firm. And so when it comes to the entrepreneur mindset, I've got ideas all the time to the point where I'm like, I want to cut my head off. I've got too many ideas. So for me, it was looking at, okay, what are these ideas that I have? And is there something that I can actually go all in on? And so that's how I landed on the bags. It was, I couldn't find a bag I liked, so that's really where it came from. And then as I was making the women's bag, I went to quite a number of networking events. Lots of men are there. And I was explaining my little side hustle and they said, well, we want a bag too. So I created a bag after asking them, well, what bag do you want? What's missing in the market? And so then I created and designed a bag based on their feedback.
So you're quite involved in the design process as well then?
Yeah, so I can't draw, but I'm in the design process. I have a designer who I've been using and through a lot of communication, my direction, inspiration, and everything. She draws what I describe to her. And that process of back and forward, we get the design. The design ends up mine through that process. And then I secured a manufacturer in Spain.
And what has this entire project, from this design stage through to the upcoming launch of this new business, what has this all taught you about your other life, as a lawyer? Does it inform how you're running your law firm, or do you see this has been like a completely separate part of your life?
No, I think it's very much blended. I feel like for me, it's giving me a level of focus for the firm as well, because I've got a couple of things on. I'm very, very focused in on my clients for the law firm. I'm working a 4-day week for the law firm and having 1 day for creativity. And I'm just implementing that now. That's something that I've just started. And I think drawing a line in the sand, if you've got a side project, really making sure your calendar is working for you. There's so much more time in a day than you realize. So it's given me a lot more focus for the firm. It's allowed me to make the decision to niche. If I didn't have the side hustle, I probably wouldn't be niching, because I would just keep on going. I'd probably be looking at, growing the firm with numbers. But for me, I don't want to grow the firm with numbers. I want to keep that clientele very boutique, very high end, to produce a high end service that can also work with the brand and where I'm heading that way as well.
So it sounds like everything we've discussed today, from the launch of this new bag business to the ill health you've experienced, through to the working holidays, everything leads to this idea of leaning further into niching down, and that all of them in a way kind of complement each other, in giving you that perspective that you have needed in order to, I guess, double down.
When I first started the business, I had Mike from Beyond Billables. He did all my marketing for my law firm. And at the beginning, he was talking to me about how important niching is for a brand. And I really had such a hard time from an ego point of view to niche, because I wanted to do it all. Because I was like, I can do it all. I'm good at it all. I want to do it all. I want mostly a full service firm that could do a little bit of transaction, a bit of property, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And every year I've gotten rid of an area up until this financial year where I said, okay, now's the time to truly niche. And truly niching, as cliche as it is, works.
Yeah. Claire, before I let you go, do you have any parting words of wisdom for other small firm owners out there about the importance of niching down and some of the ways they can look to gain the perspective that you've been able to gain?
Yeah, I think it's really important to identify the lane that you're in and stay in your lane. You will become a lot more profitable if you do that. What you enjoy and the energy that comes from the areas you enjoy naturally will bring more clients to you. So I really think staying in your lane, owning your lane, and talking about that lane is the best thing that they can do as boutique law firm owners. Putting more out there on social media, all of those things. For me, LinkedIn has been such a great platform for that. So I would just be encouraging people, if they're on the fence of, putting themselves out there social media wise, or if they're thinking, I should be niching a little bit more, highly recommend to niche, stay in your lane, know your market, know your client, and just really pound the pavement that way. Yeah.
Claire Stiles, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you to the listener for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating and review on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, as it'll help other lawyers discover and enjoy this show. And if you've got ideas for other episodes we can run, please get in touch at editor@lawyersweekly.com.au. You can also reach us on social media. See you again next time.
This podcast is produced for educational purposes to give you general information and a general understanding of the law, and should not be considered legal advice. Any advice is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, situation, or needs. Because of that, you should seek professional legal advice before acting on any of the content.